I'm putting it on recording now, and I am going directly to the presentation. Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon.
I am focusing on a presentation precisely based on what we will be required to do once the implementation of the policy begins. But it's important that we know these things even before the policy is implemented. I'm today going to talk on competencies that need to be developed in the students. You will have predominantly seen that the NCERT and the CBSE both have been focusing on competency-based teaching. And naturally, it creates a doubt in us, what are these competencies? Well, competencies in a particular subject are different from other subjects. And at the same time, competencies can vary from class to class, depending on our focus. Competency word is taken from competent. A person has learned, acquired mastery in something, so that becomes his competency. What are these competencies? Let me look at classes 3, 4, 5, or even 1 to 5, or even 6, 7, 8, because I'm looking at the lower level, automatically it will cover the higher level. It means that a competency acquired by a child, say at class 1 or at class 3, he carries on this competency, he doesn't give it up. It's not subject knowledge, which he will try to forget now. Now let's look at the competencies that need to be developed in classes 1 to 5. Predominantly, the subjects in 1 to 5 were previously, but now they may change, we don't know as yet, or they may stay the same. We will have, by the end of this year, we will have the National Curriculum Framework coming to us from the NCERT. They are languages. This will become now 3 languages. The mother tongue, English, and a third language declared by the state government. We may also have a say in the decision vis-a-vis the third language. And possibly, I am suggesting to my management, and I leave the decision to the management, that our third language cannot be a foreign language as per the rules laid down by the new policy. We may go for a third language as foreign language in class 9th, but not till class 9th. So the languages that we will be teaching will be Hindi as the mother tongue, English as the first language, because that's an international language for our children. And then we may teach them Sanskrit, if you approve. If you all agree, and it's easy, because this language is going to help our children. Mathematics is very important, numeracy. Then environmental sciences. These were the 3 subjects that we have been teaching to our children at class 1 to 5. And in 6 to 8, the environmental sciences may become general science, it may become integrated science, and the other subject may become social science, or they may call it social studies. We expect the same subject, but in addition to this, in class 6th, we will have certain subjects like coding. We'll start from class 6th. We may have some information of the craft also that they are required to do, which may not be a curricular based subject. It will not have books or other things, but there will be some information about it. Now, what are the competencies that we need to develop in our children in the languages? You know, the 4 skills for languages are L, S, R, W, in the same order. If somebody asks you ever a question like, what are the 4 skills of language learning? You will answer LSRW. Same order, don't change the order. Because the first competency is listening. The second competency is speaking. L for listening, S for speaking, R for reading, and W for writing. We expect that the child who has gone through a pre-primary education has had the foundations of literacy and numeracy, and therefore he is able to listen to a language at the level at which he is with comprehension. Listen with comprehension. If I ask him, move 10 steps backwards, he understands this. Go and bring me your notebook, he understands this. So listening with comprehension, and then speaking with comprehension. Madam, I need a piece of chalk. Madam, can you correct my notebook? He will speak sentences which are comprehensible to him and which can be comprehended by teacher as well as others. The third skill is reading. And in reading, what kind of competency are we looking for in him? That his pronunciation of words is correct. Here, I will be emphasizing on phonics, not phonetics. Because last time there was a little confusion. One of my daughters said phonetics. Phonetics is the study of the phonic system of a language. How a language is spoken. When if a student is a master's degree holder in English or an honors degree holder in English, well, then he will have studied this subject also, which is a different subject and which teaches us how to pronounce a word correctly. But I'm talking of phonics, where we teach the children the sound system of a language. And when we teach them phonics, they learn the correct pronunciation. And as they come to class 10th and 12th, they have a book by Daniel Jones, Book of Pronunciation, or they can open their dictionary. And if they have understood some of the symbols of phonetics, they can find out in front of the word is always given its phonetic transcription as to how it is to be pronounced. Correct pronunciation is a sign of good reading and good learning. Therefore, we have to develop this competency in our children that when they pronounce words, they pronounce them correctly. Do not change their pronunciation if their mother tongue is influencing the language. I have not succeeded in changing in my own state, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the past tense of certain words pronounced by Kashmiris. I am also a Kashmiri. Walked, talked. I tried to change it throughout my life. Some students learned how to speak walked, talked, but then ED is pronounced in a different way. Even the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, SIX, a Kashmiri cannot pronounce it because his own mother tongue influences it. We cannot change it, we can correct it. Some children will learn, some will not. In UP, in many zones, I have found people speak school, station, stationary. They don't speak stationary, school, station. They begin with S. In Himachal Pradesh, my children speak mayor instead of speaking major. They find very difficult to speak j. They speak here instead. And if you are a Keralite and your mother tongue is Malayalam, you will not be able to speak the letter M, mother. You will not say, you will say yadar, not mother. If you ask a Keralite Malayalam gentleman who has not been given the art of pronunciation how to speak the word mummy, he will tell you yum, you, yum, yum, why? Now you cannot correct these things because that's where the mother tongue has influenced the language of the child. But by and large, that child needs to know what the actual pronunciation of the word is. Then fluency. Our children, when they read THRE there, IS is GARDN garden. Now this is not the way of reading. In reading, you need to be fluent. You need to look at the word and your eye span should not only take in the word, but it should take 4 or 5 words ahead of that word. So pronunciation would be one of the competency you have to develop in your children. Fluency would be another competency that you have to develop. Fluency, speaking in unison, speaking fluently, speaking continuously. The better your fluency, the more the chances of your becoming creative. See, one of the qualities of creativity besides originality is fluency. There are 4 qualities for becoming creative: fluency, originality, collaboration, and spontaneity. If you exhibit these 4 qualities, the chances that your child or you are creative. Then comprehension. Comprehension means understanding. I may be speaking a language like the way I am talking to you. If you are not understanding 1 or 2% of it is expected. But if you are not understanding 80% of it or 90% of it, well, then you have not developed the ability or competency of listening to a language and understanding it. So the child should be able to pronounce the language. He should be able to read with fluency. He should be able to understand what he is reading. And writing skills happen to be very important. I'm glad one of my principals last time pointed it out to me that our children have very poor writing skills, in the sense that they do not spend as much time on writing as is required. And I brought it to the notice of the parents. I requested them, spend some time and make your children to write. Even make them write a letter to you. In our case, this writing skill was developed at our age in the schools itself. Creative writing, a letter writing day in the school, a poetry writing day in the school. Children are given a sheet of paper by the teacher, a blank sheet of paper, and told to write 4 lines that rhyme. Told to write a letter. This is encouraging writing, where they are not copying, where they are not writing in the style of somebody, but they are writing their own style. They are writing and expressing their own feelings and their own ideas. Handwriting is a good sign of education. Gandhiji used to emphasize a lot on it. He used to say, if your handwriting is poor, well then it's a sign of poor upbringing, poor education. Try to write your letters very boldly, very clearly. With a slant, we should be forward or they should be erect. A backward slant is a sign of a psychological abnormal personality. You will see that in your classes, there will not be usually children who make their letters bend backwards. Their letters are bending forwards, or there's a forward slant. The forward slant should be very less, not more than 5 or 10 degrees from the 90-degree angle. Then correction of grammar. Sometimes we compose sentences and the child writes, but he is not able to write the proper sequence of tenses. The subject does not go with the verb. He had to say, I have done my work. He writes, I has done my work. He had to say, he brushes his teeth. He says, he brushed his teeth. He had to say, my mother washes the clothes. He says, my mother washed the clothes. So there is no sequence of tenses, no conjugation of the subject and the verb. No, rules of grammar are also important. And then the child will write only provided he has a store of words with him. Every one of us has a vocabulary which is limited, but we have 2 kinds of vocabulary. One is the active vocabulary, that is the words that we use very frequently. The more the word use, the more we get conversant with those words. And the other is passive vocabulary. Some words that we met once, we read them once, we heard them once, we saw them once, but we have not used them. Because we have not used them, we are not sure of how to use those words. So when you develop the competency of reading skills, you have developed 3 skills in the children. Sorry, you have developed the pronunciation of words, you have developed the fluency of speaking, and speaking with comprehension. Now, when you are developing the writing skills, you are developing in them the art of writing in correct handwriting, being creative in their writing, using correct grammatical structure, and using the most appropriate word. That's very important. I remember I was a young student doing my post-graduation in the University of Kashmir, and I was very fond of playing cricket. I came to Jammu for selection into my Ranji Trophy team. That's where the selection was made, where a state team was selected. And while we were practicing in the GM college, the GM Science College, a government college, they had a good play field, and boys from Srinagar and Jammu had been invited. When I say boys, we were all in the age group above 19. The selection was being made. We got a news that the principal had met with a very bad, unfortunate kind of a tragedy at his home. His daughter had passed away. A condolence meeting was arranged, and although we didn't belong to the college, but as a matter of humanity, courtesy, we all participated, and the meeting was presided. I mean, all students in the open lawns of the college. It could be around 3,000 children. And one of the professors of English came to speak, and he said, "Dear friends, our principal unfortunately had an unfortunate incident which happened at his home. His daughter was traveling in an auto rickshaw. She met with an accident, and immediately she went into a coma. Now, so far, everything was fine. In that comic condition, she was carried to the hospital. The man had gone wrong. Comatose, or in a condition of coma, not comic. Comic is as opposed to tragic. There was nothing like comic in Kuma. He used a wrong word. The vocabulary used was wrong. And we all felt like laughing at a condolence meeting. But then we had to, control our laughter. And nobody had the courage to tell him. I did tell him when I met him at Allahabad. He was with us during that journey, during that trip when we were playing against Vikram University, and I told him, sir, there's a difference between coma and comic condition. Are yaar, I am not a student of master's English. I said, sir, you are a professor of English. You should have been knowing it. And many of us have not been told. It is better when you come across a student who commits mistakes of vocabulary, give them the knowledge of words, add to the repertoire of their words, let them make a list of words. We had introduced in our schools a vocabulary chart. Every student was asked to find 3 new words and come and write them the next day on the chart before the teacher would come onto the class. So every day we had a long list of words. And if a student would ask, sir, what is this word? We would read it and ask the student who had written it to give us its meaning. But vocabulary is useful only when the words are used in their sentences. Speaking skills means you should have the competency of conversation. Conversation means somebody says something to you, you should be able to respond to it with respect. Somebody asks a question, you should be able to answer it. So speaking is one of the basic skills of language. If you cannot speak a language fluently, if you cannot speak a language so that the other person is not able to comprehend it, well then recitation, reading and reading with correct modulation, correct accent, correct pausing, following the punctuation marks, reciting a passage. That also is a speaking skill. And then the listening skill is, listening is different from hearing. It is paying complete attention. An active listener alone becomes a good speaker. You have to be an active listener and listen to it so that you understand what's being said to you. If we develop these skills of any language, whether it's Hindi, whether it's Punjabi, whether it's Sanskrit or English, in a student, the possibility is that he will acquire competency in the language. What are the skills or competencies for mathematics? Number 1, the concept of pre-numbers, the concept of numbers. He must have that concept. Without the concept and the clear concept of the numbers, he won't be able to go forward. Then he must be remembering the tables. This was ignored for some time during the last, I would say, 3-4 years. Maybe from 2016, we have revived it again. Between 2006 and 2016, for about 10 years, people thought that we have the calculators in our hands, we don't need to have tables. But then they found out that even the Japanese were continuing with their children in the pre-primary classes, the learning of tables. And by class 3, a child had to learn the tables of 19 orally. It's a mental exercise, a mental gymnasium kind of a thing. So teach your children, whenever you teach them numbers or whenever you talk to them about multiplication, they must understand that it is repetitive addition. When you talk to them about division, they must understand that it is repetitive subtraction. Similarly, teach them tables and then teach them through activity. They must be able to take up an activity like taking a few geometrical figures. Say, I give him only triangles. He combines these triangles of equal sizes and makes a square for me. So this activity is important, and he must have the mental ability of doing certain ordinary computations at a young age mentally, orally, rather than taking a pen and counting on his figures 1, 2, 3, and then I have to add 9 to it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now let me count all. This exercise, without demonstrating his hands or his fingers or making his balls over a period of time, he should be able to do it mentally. What are the competencies that he has to develop in environmental science? Sensitivity to the environment. This would mean cleanliness. In the classroom, he doesn't drop pieces of paper. He doesn't drop wrappers of the toffees. He keeps them with him and drops them in a dustbin. He doesn't sharpen his pencil on his desk with those, I would say, wafers of the wood being thrown around or blown by the fans. He is sensitive that we need to have a clean environment around us. And when he goes outside, he doesn't pluck flowers because he has to present them to his teacher. He doesn't uproot plants because he is studying a plant. He is sensitive to environment. He doesn't trample either plants or fresh grass. He understands environmental sensitivity as a concept, that this environment is important for me. The plants do breathe in what is harmful to me as carbon dioxide, and they breathe out what is oxygen, and that's important to me. Therefore, planting more and more of them. But as he grows, he will realize that the plants do not only give us oxygen, they are responsible for holding the ground. Soil erosion can be protected. They are responsible for maintaining the ecological balance also. And as he grows up to class 9th or 10th, he may talk of biodiversity, or he may talk of the global warming impact of environment. There has to be an activity or a project which he is made to do to understand the environment. It may be giving him a small pot in the shape of a small canister or a can which contains condensed milk, for example, a discarded one which doesn't have any milk now, with some clay in it and a seed. And he could be given this as an activity at a very young age, to keep it at his home, to water it every day, to keep it in the sunlight, and understand the process of germination, understand the process of growth. And then when it flowers, then he could bring it to the class to show it how he has looked after it. There should be a group discussion on environmental activities always. So the child must display the zeal and the eagerness to be sensitive to environment, to participate in an activity or a project, and to discuss things about the environment in a group. In art and craft, he must show interest, which is possible only when you use lots of colors, when you use materials. He must show some kind of a creativity. His skill is definitely in playing with art or in doing work of craft, doing it very artistically, doing it very beautifully as a pattern as to what the teacher has already shown him. But then he should display some kind of a creativity of his own. In music and dance, he must show interest. He must understand what is rhythm, and he must appreciate the melody. So if his feet are tapping on a melody and he understands the beat of a rhythm, he has interest in both music and dance. In co-curricular activities, which you will be considering very important now because they are a part of his report card now. He will have a holistic report card. Does he show enthusiasm in the activity? You organized a cultural fest. You wanted a singing competition. You had a debating competition. This was a co-curricular activity associated with your curriculum. Did the child enthusiastically participate? Did he maintain proper and adequate discipline as per the required norms of that activity? Did he work together as a team along with others? Did he display some talent of his own? These are the competencies which we have to develop. In his personality, is he courteous to others? Does he show confidence of doing things on his own? Does he take care of his belongings, or his mother is coming every other day? Yesterday, my son forgot the lunchbox. Somebody stole his notebook. Nobody steals. The child is not confident enough to look after his own belongings. He leaves them. This is why we have the homeroom periods in some of the prestigious schools up to class 5. The last 5 minutes after the teacher marks the afternoon attendance. In some schools, it's marked after the lunch, but in majority of schools, it's marked at the end of the day. And then the teacher says, all right, the attendance is done. Each one of you, please stand up. All the children stand up. Please bring your bags to your friend. Check up all the things that you brought from your home. Look for your lunchbox. Are all your notebooks there? Your pencil is there? Have you put your water bottle safely? Come on, tuck in your shirt inside your shorts or your pants. That's for the boys. Set right and pull your skirt. Tighten your belt. Set right your tie. See that your shoes are clean. Now walk in a line. Monitor, take charge. They move in a line. The purpose is to create in them a care and an awareness of their belongings. The children do not forget anything. And today, when you teach them to take care of their belongings, they automatically are able to see that nobody else forgets. Madam, there's a notebook left. Whose is this? Madam, there's a pencil here. So they know that everybody has a sense of property of his own, and stealing as a habit is prevented from a very young age. Then being neat. I have not allowed, I'll tell you, I may be mistaken, but I'm not as good as many of you. I have not allowed children to go home dressed shabbily. They come so neatly in the morning. I would provide a polish and a brush in every class. I would provide soap and a towel in every class. And if the teacher found that there were 4 children who needed combing of hair, who needed brushing of the shoes at least, or who needed trimming themselves and setting them in order and making them look tidy, the teacher would make them tidy in the next 2 to 3 minutes. And sometimes the other children would also help, so that our children would go at least, if not 100%, 90% as neat as they had come in the morning. They would not go disheveled with their clothes loose and hanging, no. Then regularity and punctuality is also a competency. Being on time. And this does not develop in children where either the parent is not punctual or regular, or the teacher is not punctual and regular. I have seen in classes where a teacher unfortunately had some problems, which were family problems, or the teacher was not keeping good health. He would not come regularly to class. We would see the teacher coming on Monday, then absent on Tuesday and Wednesday, back again on Thursday and Friday, absent again on Saturday. Because of our own problems, we could not help. Those problems were such which the teacher would manage over a period of time. But very soon we found out that the children also started becoming irregular. And when their parents started asking me, why aren't you going to school? Our teacher, Mama, you know, does not come regularly. She will not be coming today. We know because she came yesterday and she was not feeling good. She was feeling bad. She will not come. If the teacher does not come in time, right after the stroke of the bell, well, the children also stay a little longer outside when they have gone for physical education or music, and they walk in a little later, so the teacher has to look at the door and, Madam, may I come in? And she has to keep on saying it to 10 children who already are not in time. It is better that the teacher waits outside for those children to get into the class, and then when she gets in or he gets in, all the children get up. This is a competency, and it becomes a lifelong habit. You will understand neatness, regularity, courteousness, confidence. These are habits that are ingrained in a child from a very young age. When you talk of his personality development, a child must take initiative. I want somebody to help me. We have to shift this blackboard a little to the right. Somebody to hold the easel, somebody to hold the blackboard. Only 3 children out the class run up, because they have that initiative of doing something. Others do not. I remember in my own home, whenever we had to lay the bed, in Kashmir, we used to sleep not on beds as we sleep outside Kashmir. The beds are laid on the floor. As soon as we had to lay it, and we would say, come on, bring the mattresses and let's lay them. One of my sons would quietly say, Papa, can I go to the washroom? Well, that was always the habit, because he never took the initiative of laying the bed. And it lasted with him. And then when he went to the hostel and stayed there for 4 or 5 years, he learned that he had to take initiative. Sharing and caring is very important. I have seen that in some classes, in the lunch break, the teacher goes around the children and sees that everybody has his lunch or does not have her lunch. Then what she does, she shares between 2 or 3 students. They care for one another. These qualities are very, normal qualities in a child, and a child would love to share. I have seen some children even sharing things with their teachers. Even though the teacher has been hesitating, they would feel bad if the teacher does not accept. There's no harm in accepting and passing it on to another child who doesn't have them. Respect for others' property. This comes from care, taking care of your own belongings. If you take care of own belongings, then you automatically learn that the other's belongings are important to him. Exercising self-control. You get angry. Will I call your mother to control you? I'm talking of the child. Self-control. You are feeling sad. Does it mean that you should shed tears in front of everybody? Now, this quality develops later on into emotional control. The child learns to sublimate his own instincts and emotions and cope up with anger, with jealousy, with hatred, with love. He understands that these emotions need proper care. In health, we do on an average per month maybe after 3 months in every term. We used to have 3 terms earlier. Now that we have 6 months term, a semester, we measure the height of the child and his weight, and corresponding to that height and weight, we calculate the BMS, the body mass, BMI, body mass index of the child, and thereby see whether the child is an average child, has grown properly, is he becoming what we call, what is the word called, obese, or is he getting undernourished? Because if his weight is not in proportion to his height, well, then automatically he is malnourished, he is undernourished. And if his weight is more than it should have been as per his height, well, then he is getting obese, which is a major problem in our schools now. A large percentage of children, because of the, I would say, the food that they eat outside their homes, like the pizzas, the pastas, the noodles, the burgers. Now, this is badly affecting their obesity. They are getting hyped up, their mass is increasing. If you look at these competencies that we listed, the National Curriculum Framework, which was given to us in 2009, will come now again to us at the end of 2021. It has also emphasized on the art of healthy and practical living, AHPL, a tendency for us not to lead a practical life, not to lead a healthy life. It's only when we start falling ill, when the doctor prescribes that I should go for a walk, when the doctor says that I must keep myself active by taking an exercise, then only I take this. But it has to be developed as a part of the curriculum and the competencies that we need to develop them. My request to you is that we follow this. I would take 1 minute more. We will be focusing on reading skills of the children, pronunciation, fluency, and comprehension. Their writing skills of making them write in good handwriting, following the rules of grammar, adding up to their vocabulary, and becoming creative writers. We'll make them speak and develop conversations within the class, and sometimes organize recitation competitions. We'll make them listen to what is being spoken, and we see how much they comprehend. I played an audio for about 5 minutes, and the children had to listen. I gave them another hearing of this audio, and then I gave a worksheet to them, a worksheet in which there were some questions. What did Ram say to Shyam? Because Ram and Shyam were the 2 characters in that audio who were speaking to one another. What did he talk about the bullseye? Why was he referring to the bullseye? Now, these questions could only be answered if the child had listened carefully and if he had comprehended. In mathematics, it's the concept, the tables, the activity, and the mental ability. In environmental science, it's the environmental sensitivity, the project or activity, and a group discussion. In art and craft, it is the interest that he displays, the skill that he acquires and develops, and the creativity that he shows. In music and dance, it is the interest that he takes, the rhythm that he follows, the melody that he appreciates. In co-curricular activities, his enthusiasm, discipline, team spirit, and his talent, which can be displayed, is apparent. In his personality development, making him courteous, making him feel confident, taking care of his belongings, staying always neat, that's personal hygiene, and his regularity and punctuality will reflect that. His initiative, his sharing and caring with others, his respecting property of others, and his exercising self-control in his height, in weight, and height. Now, you may ask me a question. You may say, sir, this is all right. This you told us are the minor competencies at the primary level, but as the children move up, their competencies also have to increase. And the number of competencies that they develop, sir, as they go up will also be, I'll stop sharing for a minute. Their competencies will also be more, and possibly the number of competencies will increase. But one thing is important, that how do we teach for these competencies? Is there a model? I have taken the competencies of the lower level, and I'll teach, give you a video which talks of the competencies at a higher level. Now here I share this model. I hope you hear the sound, the video. Can you hear the sound? No.
Yes, we all can.
You can hear the sound?
Yes, sir.
But I alone am not able to hear the sound.
Yes, sir, we can.
Let me see what went wrong. 1 minute, beta. 1 minute only. Something went wrong because of which I am not able to hear the sound. Share computer sound, optimize screen sharing. The sound is very low for me.
As people are willing to buy more, they're making more and they're
Not
charging more
audible.
for it.
How does that relate back to our free market principles?
As demand goes up, supply goes up.
Because we assess student mastery of competencies, we have a better understanding of exactly what the student can do. It's a more equitable system for assessing student understanding, and it also puts the ownership of the learning into the kids' hands.
You're being assessed on competency number 3, presentation of learning.
Competency-based learning is the idea that students are trying to meet certain big picture understandings, not complete a bunch of tasks, jump through a bunch of hoops, and average a bunch of scores out.
I want to make sure that you guys are aware of the competencies.
The competencies are anywhere between 5 to 7 statements that say these are the focus areas for this course. This is what you need to demonstrate that you know to have mastered this course.
The most fundamental shift an individual teacher can make is to just take those traditional categories you used to have in your gradebook, quizzes, tests, homework, and shift them to the enduring skill sets and habits of mind for your discipline.
We're gonna have like 2 of each.
And the kids, because that's how they're being assessed, start to think about things a little bit more in terms of the enduring understandings you're trying to get at.
Good morning. I'd like you to start working on your project today. It goes with competency 2. It is over here on the walls.
I think the competency-based approach is better because it gives students the ability to demonstrate competence in a variety of ways.
In economics class, the competency that we are demonstrating is supply and demand systems. So they charge $100, $200, $300, up to $600 for it because it's fairly cheap to make them. We have individual freedom when it comes to the work that we can do.
We can do a test, or we could do a project, either like a PowerPoint or a poster.
So you're still set on this SpongeBob idea?
I had 2 students who have been hounding me about a SpongeBob episode.
He has to buy the chocolate bars and has to buy bags to carry the chocolate bars.
Is that part of the episode?
The whole episode really talks about how there's different ways of selling things. There's different styles of how you sell them.
So your product that you're going to focus on are the chocolate bars.
They believe that selling chocolate bars demonstrates the concepts of demand and supply very well.
Consumer tastes and preferences definitely demonstrated.
Right. So I challenged them to create a series of graphs and then analyze each graph and look at that interplay of demand and supply and the prices.
What could you look at?
Preferences.
Okay.
And then like the number of sellers. I'm not a very good test taker, but with the project we're able to say this is what I need to do and this is what I need to work on, rather than just trying to cram it all into our minds.
So it sounds like you've got 2 ideas, but we need to come up with 2 more.
Okay.
Choice allows them the opportunity to be cognizant of their learning style and how they learn best.
We'll continue with this tomorrow. Have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you start to think of your procedure from the lab, remember you are in charge today.
Since this is completely our decision how we do it, we have to write our materials, procedures, all that stuff that we did.
The whole idea of competency-based, it puts ownership in the students' hands to demonstrate that they were able to master that particular competency.
As close as you can.
You can have one area of the room on something that other students have already finished.
Sitter's right here.
Sometimes you'll have in a different corner students going back to revisit something.
Which one's this? Sugar, and then this is NaCl.
They have to meet each competency.
Procedure 1 was get the chunks at the end.
So they could do a really good job with the concept, but not do a really good job with their science process. They don't redo that assignment. But in the next lab that we do, maybe that student does a formal lab report.
Yeah.
Or they could take a written test instead. They could do an essay on something. You don't just move on with a big gap in your understanding. We don't let you do that. Because you're assessing the student in a way that fits the student.
Excellent. Good job.
You're getting a better assessment of where the kid really is.
You have your price, and then you have like the supply.
Competency-based education is just, in general, much more fair for every student.
Ready? Go.
I move over to the second presentation. Now, I think I will have to open that presentation first. Can you see, Krishnan? Can you see that? Can we see?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Vita. Thank you. God bless you. Now, as we move out of these competencies, what are the various ways in which our children can have practice on hands-on learning? Can we convert a topic, because we have been listening to these words that there are activities and please teach only through activities. We have done it vis-a-vis the pre-primary. I have a long list of activities that I'll be reading out here. If I feel tired, I may need some help, but then I would like that you choose your own activities. I read the first two. The teaching activity will change according to the subject that's being taught and according to the goal that you have fixed for yourself. The goal that you have to achieve on that day, that will decide the activity that you will use. There are some general teaching activities that can be used in a variety of subjects. I will be dealing with those general teaching activities, not with specific activities related to any particular subject. And these activities can be used right through in class 3 as well as in class 8. Some in class 3 predominantly, and some will be difficult for class 3, may be taken up only in class 8. It's very simple. The first activity is pass the buck. Now, you have done this activity in many of your programs, but they were small parties. The students are put in pairs. They write their ideas or they write their questions on a sheet of paper. And this sheet of paper is being passed around to another pair. They also write their ideas. So the buck is this piece of paper with their ideas, giving them an experience of expressing their ideas. And every time it reaches me, I read out the ideas written on the piece of paper before me by 5 peers. Now me and my buddy are the 6th peer. A snowball questions. A student has a question. He is asked to write it on a piece of paper on the topic just taught by us. They crush this piece of paper, make a paper ball of it, and hit their classmates. They can throw it anywhere. This became a bad exercise for me. I had to change it. I will tell you how I changed this activity later on. I call that the snowball variant. They hit their classmates with this paper ball, and all children at the point of time are told by the teacher to stop and pick up the ball near to them. Every child has to pick up one ball which is very close to his seat. On that ball is a question written by some other child, and he has to answer that question. And then the teacher spends some time in asking them to read both the answer and the question. It's a jigsaw. A topic is divided into subtopics. A group of students, a peer of students, or an individual student is given a part of that subtopic. Every one of them studies that, and then the presentations are made on these subtopics. The teacher combines these subtopics and combines the whole presentation. I did it for a teacher known as Renu Sharma in social science. Class 10th board examination or a final examination, I don't remember now, it was long back, 2005, 15 years back, was approaching, and she wanted to finish 23 pages of a lesson, something like Industrial Revolution was it, or it was about civilizations, I don't remember exactly. And she came to me making a request to me if I could talk to the principal and have the syllabus of the pre-board examination amended and this chapter be deleted. I said, madam, we have 16 or 17 schools, which are all dependent on the same paper. And there's a possibility that this chapter may have been already taught at other places. We can give a choice, but then Mr. David, the principal, has to take a call. Mr. David, sir, I'm sorry, sir. I wouldn't agree to the request of the teacher. I have been persuading her to improve upon her speed. She teaches well, very wonderfully. She teaches very well, but she teaches very slowly. She doesn't finish things on time, and therefore it's a responsibility. So she was all tears, and there were only 3 days left. I went with her to the class, and we broke the class into 6 parts, 6 groups. I mean, every child was assigned a group A or a group B or a group C or a group D or a group E or a group F. These were our groups. Each group was given some pages of this lesson. Say group A, page 1 to page 4. Group B, page 5 to page 8. Group C, page 9 to page 13. In this way, all the 24 pages were distributed among the 6 groups. And each student was requested that you will study this page, these 4 pages only, very carefully. Take help from your parent or your tutor if you have one at home. Read it thoroughly and then try to make a presentation on it. A presentation which can be oral, a presentation which can be through a chart, wherein you will use a graphic organizer. Say you will use a concept map, or you will use a mind map, or you can use a PPT even, because the class was 10th. But then this decision will be taken by all of you together in the group, because all the other 4 boys in your group or 5 boys in your group are working on it, and tomorrow you will be given some time to discuss it. So each student prepared his 4 pages. When they came the next day and sat in their group, each one of them spoke of what he had learned from those 4 pages, because 5 of them had read those 4 pages and the other 5 had read other 4 pages. They discussed this among themselves. They decided upon the modus operandi of the presentation. It was their decision. Some groups decided they would make a PPT. Some decided that no, they would present it with the help of a flow chart. Some decided no, we can go to the board and explain it. And then each group came forward. The first group talked of the first 4 pages. The second group talked of the second 4 pages. And by the end, they had completed the whole lesson. I told Renu, now the class is yours on the 3rd day. Sir, what do I do? I said, they have discussed each part, but one child knows only one part. He doesn't know the other parts. You combine all these parts. That combining word is known as jigsaw. So the whole information was reaching the whole class. That is jigsaw. Peer teaching is wonderful. It's wonderful to me because as a student of memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, I have always believed that retention of a child increases when he teaches another child. So if your children are seated in peers A and B, let student A explain a part of the text to student B. And then let student B explain the remaining part of it, or explain the same part in his or her way to A. This way, the retention of the textual material increases up to 95% plus. When he is explaining, the other child can stop him if he is going wrong, so the corrections also can be made. If you have done this work in one peer, there's a peer looking at you, seated on a bench, and behind them is another peer. Now the peer in the front can be asked to turn back and face the other peer. So from 2s, we have become 4s. We were a peer of 2, and behind us was another peer, or in front of us is another peer. That peer joins us and we become 4. Again, the discussion starts. The first peer teaches it to us, and now we as a peer teach it to them. Worksheets. I must be very honest with you. The whole success story of DPS schools becoming a brand name is the story of worksheets. Not started by DPS, but started by a teacher from MIT. Long back, Mrs. Mondira Bardwaj started them with Hindi, brought them to mathematics, and there was a publishing house that brought them in, and DPS used them extensively. I have an example of one of my teachers from my own home. A proud principal of a school, this teacher daughter of mine, say, she was my daughter-in-law basically, was teaching English to class 4th. And the principal somehow found out that her section was doing a little better than the other 6 sections he had in all, than the other 5 sections. So he told her, why don't you take the book that we are going to adopt and use as a reader next year? Take the book home, and you have these days of examination, then the days of evaluation. I want 2 worksheets or 3 worksheets on every lesson, every chapter of the book. Depending on how much you are going to teach on a day, make a worksheet. Then on the next day, make another worksheet. So when she came home, she was almost in tears. I had to encourage her, support her, and tell her whatever work the principal had given to her was in the interest of the children, and predominantly it was in her own interests. She started developing those. Those days we didn't have sample books with worksheets. Otherwise, I would have asked her to borrow simply the worksheets from those books. Now you can do that. But the worksheets had to be made on a single chapter. Out of that chapter, it was not possible to teach the whole chapter in one day. Only a part of the chapter could be taught, so the worksheet had to be made. She made 248 worksheets on the entire book. And she went to her principal and said, sir, these are the worksheets. I would request the headmistress to go through them. She said, there is no need. Has Professor Handu seen them? I mean, he knew me and I didn't know that. That had passed on. He said, yes, sir. He helped me to make them also, and he helped to go through and do a little proofreading of them. He said, I'm sending this for printing as a model set for all teachers of my school. This will become a model for English. I will ask my Hindi teachers, mathematics teachers, science teachers. So all teachers had more than 248 or less than 248 worksheets. Now, what was the purpose? Now, see the brainy principal that he was, the intelligent principal that he was. He told his teachers that I am extending your period length and duration by 10 minutes. Your period will be 40 minutes now. Your teaching period will be 40 minutes now, not 35 or 30. I want you to teach as usual for not more than 30 minutes. 25 you should close, 5 minutes you should sum up, and then take out one worksheet and give it to the children. Wait for 5 minutes and tell them to complete this worksheet within the last 5 minutes of the class. They should have no homework now. They will finish whatever you have taught them and give them homework which would be original, otherwise not pertinent to this lesson. Everything that had been taught to the lesson was assessed through that worksheet, revised through that worksheet, practiced through that worksheet before the children went back home. Now that's the importance of a worksheet. The worksheet may be used in the class. The worksheet may be used as a home assignment, as a homework, whatever purpose. It can contain questions which have one-word answers. You'll be surprised here. The mathematics paper of class 10th and mathematics paper of class 12th board pattern has been changed slightly. There will be no MCQs in the mathematics of class 10th and 12th. There will be only one short answer, 16 or 17 marks, but the answer will have to be created and developed. There won't be any choices. So please look at the sample papers, especially my mathematics teachers. They must look at those sample papers, and some mothers whose children are appearing in board class, they must look at those sample papers carefully. The questions predominantly are objective type in these worksheets, matching the columns, matching the words with their meanings, rearranging things, filling up things, or using the MCQs. Domino cards is another exercise. You have heard of it in the junior classes, but here a pair of students is given a card. The card has a question and it has an answer. The answer is on the back side of the card and it has a question on the front. It has an answer on the back. Now you'll be thinking, sir, if the question is also there and the answer is there, madam, that's not the answer to this question. It's an answer to some other question. Now, one of the peer reads the question. The students are all looking at their answers and they have to find out what answers the question. And the boy who has, or the girl who has the answer to the question read out by this boy from his card will say, yes, sir, I have the answer. Here is the answer, sir. Now, once she has found out the correct answer, now she has the opportunity of reading the question from her card. Somebody else will find out the answer. This is a game of domino cards, making them conversant once again with the questions and the relevant answers to those questions. The opportunity here is that the one who finds out the relevant answer has only the opportunity of asking another question, not otherwise. Hot seating is very interesting. You have seen it, how it happens in Kaun Banega Crorepati. KBC is the best program of hot seating. But I saw an example, or I should have said I did an example once on Humayun, the great king. I told my children that they read everything about Humayun and find out every information. We will have a game tomorrow. And I went to the class when the period was there. They had all come to me, sir, it's our class. I said, why should we go to the class? Why don't we sit in the open lawns? We sat in the open lawns along with the teacher. Mamta Sabharwal was the teacher. We sat there. I requested a peon if he could pass on a chair to me. Mamta brought it halfway. I pulled it the other halfway and we put it in front of the class. They felt very happy. Now sir would sit. I said, foolish, I am not using this chair. Who among you looks somewhat like Humayun? They all looked at themselves. Some were tall, some were short, some were not so graceful. Some didn't look majestic, some didn't look kingly. And finally, they decided on 3 or 4. Sir, he looks like, Amjad looks like that. No, sir, Sunil looks like that. We had 2 or 3 names. I said, let us decide upon Sunil for the time being. Later on, Amjad will also take the part. I said, you come here, my son, and take this chair. Now, my dear friends, he is our Humayun today. Good, sir. And he must have somebody who waves the fan because he is the king sitting in the chair. Or should I do that? No, sir, I'll do it. Somebody got up. So Humayun is sitting on his throne, the chair. And there is boy, Amjad say, he is carrying a notebook with him and waving a fan. And then I said, all of you are ready. You can open your books on Humayun. Fire questions at Humayun. Humayun will answer them. He will answer each and every question that he has, that you ask him about Humayun. About Humayun's life history, his exploits, his wars, his policies, his administration, and everything that you ask. And if at any point of time he does not answer your question, you have to answer that question. Humayun goes back to his seat, you come and become Humayun. A wonderful exercise. We enjoyed it. The whole lesson was done by the children. The first question asked of him was, who are you? And he very boldly said, can't you see I am sitting on my throne? I am Humayun, the great Mughal. And then somebody asked him, how old are you? When I ascended the throne, I was only 13. That was his answer. I was so happy that these answers and these questions came a lovely way. The students can enjoy a topic through this hot seating also. Role plays are very important. They are as important in the junior most class, that's nursery or KG, as they are important even at class 7th and 8th. I have seen very good Nukkad Nataks performed by children of senior classes, the senior most classes, even the college students doing them on the railway platforms, doing them in the streets, creating awareness. They are given a situation and they have to present the situation as a role play. It's a very good activity. Basically, whatever the child has learned previously gets integrated with the topic in hand. Stump your body, a very interesting activity. One of my teachers teaching say, my teacher and I are 2 buddies, and we are both luckily in the class. Now the teacher is making a presentation, and suddenly I stop her. I say, my dear Krishna, please stop. Don't talk anything. And I say, children, I am Krishna's friend. We are both buddies. We have prepared this topic. Now, I would like to know what Krishna taught you during the last 7 minutes. Let me ask a few questions. He asks a few questions. The children answer them, and Krishna takes over again. So, stumping the body is stopping the body. Stopping the body periodically after some time, asking the students to discuss what they have learned, and even asking them to work in groups or asking them questions to answer. Other is framing questions. You ask your partner to write down a question, and the other one has to answer on what he has learned about that question. So child A writes a question, and child B is asked to answer that question by child A. So B answers the question, then B writes the question and A answers the question. Framing of questions, because children generally do not know how to ask a question because they do not know how to frame a question. So here they are being taught how to frame question. Graphic organizers, we call them geos, they are very useful. Please teach topics through creation of mind maps, pictograms, using a model, using a Venn diagram, using a flow chart, or using sometimes sketches which are very colorful. And then the child can do them himself also. I have been emphasizing on my grandchildren when they were studying in class 6. It's only one, the last one of them who is studying in class 7. Yes, in 7th now. Otherwise, majority of them are out of class 12. A few only are in class 12th now, 2 of them. The last one is in 7th, one is in 9th. Now, when I would sit with them and they would expect that daddy will talk to us and he will teach us, I would say, foolish. I didn't teach your mother or your father as when they were my children. Why should I teach you? But I would like you, whatever you have been reading, if you can create a mind map for 5 minutes on about it. They would go back, I would explain the concept of the mind map. They would come up with the balloons and different kites or sometimes trees and different branches. And I would tell them, please talk about it to me for 2 minutes. I gave them a new method of learning and summing of information. My grandchildren had never to waste time. And there are many millions of such children who never waste time on rewriting what they have read. They read something, they note down the points, they convert the points into a flow chart, or they convert the points into a what we call a concept map, and then using the concept map in front of them, they explain the whole. It becomes a very interesting way of teaching. Stand up and sit down. Now, the teacher reads out some statements. If the statements are false, the students have to stand up. If the statement is correct, the children sit down. You'll say, sir, ye khadak uthak baitak kyun kara rahe hain bachon se? Reason being, I want to give them a kinesthetic movement. I want the children to be physically active. They have been sitting for a very long time. I want them to stand and sit. Now, I read out a statement deliberately that is false. Some children stand, some do not. I tell them it's a false statement. I repeat the statement and then they all stand up. Then I read another statement which doesn't read anybody to stand. Everybody is seated, which tells me that they can understand the difference between true and false now. And then I teach my partner. This is A teaching B and B teaching A. And it's not only teaching him, you have to explain what it is. How would you explain it? My question to the child A is, how would you explain what you have learned today to B? And my same question to B is, whatever you have learned today, how would you explain it? Sometimes they make a diagram and explain it. Sometimes they write a few bullet point words and they explain it. Sometimes they make a sketch or 2 character sketches and they explain it. They find their own ways. Symbolism. Find a symbolic object. You have seen in some of the TV shows, you might have seen dancers using a prop. And they have to dance and use that prop in the dance. Similarly, you use a prop and give it as a symbolic object with the group. This object should be related to something. For example, if it's a specter or a crown, it's related to a king. If it's a pen, it's related to somebody. If it's a scientific apparatus of anything, it's related to a scientist. If it is a car, a small toy car, it's related to motion, maybe acceleration. If it is, what do we call that firki? I'm forgetting the word. It could be something, say a kite. It is related to upward thrust of air. If it is related to a little water contained in a big trump, glass trough, and some objects, it's related to the Archimedes principle of flotation. I may be teaching my children, so they have now to use this. The symbol has to be used to explain the processes of floating and sinking. This is what I changed, the snowball variant. I asked the students that you write your questions, but do not throw them, because they used to throw the question to their favorite ones, and sometimes somebody was powerful enough to hit. I had children who were my daughters in the classes also. So I told them that you don't throw it, you pass them back again to me, and then I would give them to the children and tell them to answer the questions from the class. because this throwing became a kind of a dirty exercise sometimes. So I changed the snowball into a variant. Children were told to write pieces, fold the paper properly. I would go and collect these, and then I would give one to each child while coming back, and then he had to answer that question. Interpretation. I have taught something, and now I ask the children, write a paragraph on what I taught. It should not be more than 50 words. If you don't want to write a paragraph, compose a song on it or a poem on it. See, you can revise and practice something through a poem, through a song, through an illustration, through a paragraph also. So that's interpretation, using your own mode which you prefer. So someday a child would write a song which didn't look like a song, a poem which apparently was not a poem, but my purpose was not to see whether he was becoming a poet or a songwriter. My purpose was to see whether what he had learned, he could write that in whatever way he wanted. Conduct a quiz in the class, give students a quiz, break them into 2 or 3 groups, give them marks, and let the quiz be answered. Pass on the question if it's not answered by group A to group B. But for past question, marks should be less. And there can be quiz where the group can discuss among themselves the answer. 2 or 3 students discussing, 5 students discussing, and arriving at a correct answer. Or all the students together put in groups, and the one who touches the bell or rings the bell first, he answers the question. Now, fish a question, a very interesting kind of an activity. A teacher has written his questions on cards, and these cards have been put inside a bag or a big container. Now, what the student does, he puts his hand or he uses a fishing rod and pulls out. It's a magnetic rod. It's a rod which has a magnet attached, and these questions are small pieces or containing small pieces of iron rolled into the paper, and it retracts. He is able to bring in one question. The easiest is let him put his hand and pull out one question because it is folded. He can't read it. So as soon as he fishes out, that is bringing out a question, he has to answer that question. So it's his luck. He has to answer a question. Everybody gives him a hand. He gets 2 marks. If he doesn't answer a question, somebody else is told to answer that question. So somebody gets 1 mark for that question, and he is told to correct his. Miming a new word you learned. This is a vocabulary exercise. And you have done it. You have done it in games like dumb charade that you have been playing. We have taught some new words in a language today, and we tell you, now don't move your lips, perform actions so that others can guess what word we have learned. I show the word to a child, he knows what the word is, and I know what the word is. He has to perform actions now, and the children have to guess what that word is. So you are adding to their vocabulary by sign language as to what the word is. You can add some more terms to their vocabulary. You write the terms on the blackboard, and a student describes a new term, and then the other guesses which one is being described. Now, the terms are written on the blackboard, but the child is describing any term that he likes. It's not in the serial order, and the children have to guess which term it was, the definition of that term he gives. Articulation. In advance, you inform your children that you are going to stop your presentation and you are going to pull out a name from the box. I call it the AMP box. AMP, Active Mental Participation Box. You have the names of all the children on small slips of paper folded together. I do it with teachers in every workshop, physical workshop. I put it in the box and suddenly I stop. I say, let me see. I pull out a name. I put a question to all. Everybody is thinking, but the name that comes out from the box, he alone is asked to answer. Here, he alone is asked to summarize what I have taught so far. You are a teacher in the class. You say, all right, I have taught you a few things. The most important out of that were 3 things. Now, who is going to tell me those 3 things? Discuss it among yourselves. And stop it now. Discussion stops. I am putting my hand. I bring out the piece of paper. I have given the opportunity to everybody to find out the answer. Now the name that I read, he alone has to answer. Think, peer, and share. The teacher asks a question or presents a problem. The students discuss it among themselves. Then they share the information that they have on this problem with the whole class. Collaborative learning. Students should work together. They can produce a booklet. They can produce a newspaper for the class. They can produce a magazine for the class. They can go and interview the principal and the headmistress or their teacher and then record the interview or write the interview as they did it. They can make a PowerPoint presentation or a skit on it, on whatever has been going on. The purpose and the focus is that children do not learn individually, they learn collectively, collaborate while learning. So each one of them keeps on adding a little. There can be a weak child like me who did not learn everything. But when there are 5 more working with me, they give me 4 more points and I had learned only 1. And now I remember all the 5 because they tell me, hey Handu, your book handwriting is good. You will write this booklet. So I am writing the booklet and somebody is good at presentation. He makes the presentation. Students develop review material of their own. They create a crossword puzzle of their own. They create a quiz of their own. They make a worksheet for another children of their own. Sometimes children are very good at making question banks. The next one is question papers. I have done this exercise. I asked the children in Jhansi. They asked me, sir, what are the guess questions can our teachers give us? They used to give us every year, sir, but now you have stopped them from giving any guess. You are asking us to read everything. I said, no, let me see. By tomorrow, make a question paper. All of you can do it together, or some of you can work in groups. Ultimately, it was decided that 3 question papers would come from the class. They took some help from the teachers and they gave me 3 question papers. I gave them to the teacher concerned. I asked them to improve the language, make the correction, put it in the proper order, and give me all the 3. I had all the 3 printed, and when they came for their pre-boards, I used only one of them. They didn't know which one. And then when they finished, they said, sir, ये तो गलत हो गया, ये उन्होंने बनाया था, उन्होंने तैयार भी किया. मैंने कहा बाकी 2 तो मेरे टेबल पे सामने पड़े हैं, वो भी घर ले जाओ, वो भी अब करो तैयार. I had given them practice of 1 question paper at 13 or 14 questions. I had given them practice of preparing 42 questions. In-text questions is wonderful. Wonderful. I would like all my language teachers, please be attentive for a little time. Attentive. I don't have a textbook. We should have been physically facing each other. I would have done it and you would have understood beautifully. Now the slide that is in front of you is the text that I am teaching in the class. This is my textbook of English, which I am teaching in the class. I am going to explain to you what is in-text questions. Now this is how I will read. Students develop review materials. What will students develop? Answer will be review materials. Who will develop review materials? Students. Students create a crossword puzzle, a quiz or worksheet for others. What do students create? Sir, they create a crossword puzzle. What else? They create a quiz. What else? They create a worksheet. For whom do they create it? Sir, for other students. Who creates these worksheets? The students. These questions that are taken out of the text are based on the text. This is the best method of explaining a prose lesson. Unfortunately, we change prose into more difficult prose. We become more prosaic. It is interesting that if you ask in text, whatever is written in the text, change the text. For example, a great sage once upon a time lived in the forest deep amidst the caves of the mountains. Now this was the sentence. Who lived there in the forest, my dear children? Sir, a great sage. Where did he live? Sir, he lived in the forest. Where in the forest? Sir, deep inside the caves. I have finished explaining. I don't need any further explanation of this sentence. So you can understand these questions are called in-text questions. There are some more activities that can be used for higher order thinking. Experiments are very important. I would like that my science teachers always use the labs or always bring some materials with them for demonstration. Problem solving activities are always good. In geography, planning imaginary trips are very important. Research is very important. You see, imaginary trip means today let's go to Hawaii. We will take a visit of these islands and I'm going to go carry you. When you describe this imaginary trip, the children feel as if they are on the trip. They understand the climatic conditions, the geography, they understand the people, the culture of the people, the food items that are available there. So it becomes very beautiful. Research, looking for information and searching for information from sites, from Google, From Wikipedia, they are able to give you a lot of information. Compare and contrast, an activity for developing concepts. When you ask children to compare two things or two concepts or two rules of kings or two scientific words like mass and weight, like rest and motion, you are helping them to understand it better. But if you ask them to contrast these two things, you are developing the context. Please remember, to develop the concept in the students, comparing is important, but asking them to find the differences in the two is more important. Because when they find the differences, then the concept becomes more drilled into the mind. Ask the children to conduct an interview. They can interview one another. A group of children can interview the principal, interview another teacher, interview a group of another students. Give them a story. Do not end the story. Do not conclude the story. Ask them to write the ending of the story. Create an original dialogue between. Now, my dear friends, if I imagine Lord Rama decides to pay a visit to Kashi, and he finds that there is a Kashi Vishwanath's temple there, and Kashi Vishwanath in his full form as Lord Shiva, unfortunately has been in his Rudra Roop because of this corona, is very angry with all of us and punishing us therefore, but Lord Rama comes to him. Now you have to discuss, you have to write, what will they discuss? I can tell you the beginning of this dialogue. Lord Rama will approach him and tell him, hello friend, I am meeting you after a long time. The two of you have been living together for a long time in heaven. I am Vishnu and I am sure you recognize me. You are Shiva. You are the destroyer. I am the creator. Enough is enough. Let us stop this corona now. Shiva replies, I am proud of you, my friend. I trust you. You have been a great preserver of this whole human race. But unfortunately, they have not followed the path. You showed them in Ramayana what ideals were. You taught them in Mahabharata what karma was. But are they following it? Because they have gone on the path of sin, I have to punish them. Now, this could be the beginning of the dialogue. Let the children write it. I have given you an idea. Don't think of this dialogue, please. I just created it on the spur of the moment. There can be ideas for writing a letter to somebody. Writing a letter to somebody. Write a letter to the President Trump, telling him about the situation. Write a letter to the President of China as to what had we done to him that he spread this. See, create an imaginary kind of a plot for something. A perfect habitat for an animal of your choice. You have to create. I'll buy a rabbit for you. I want you to create a perfect habit. Tell me what kind of habitat will you? My children did everything, but they forgot to cement the ground. Because a rabbit is very fond of digging deep into it, and therefore he would disappear within a couple of days. He would dig his burrow and escape through some other hole. So I told them, look here, the rabbits, they didn't know that he was in the habit of moving from place to place through burrows and through holes. Go to the library and find a book named so-and-so. Find what is written on it. Make a list of the top 10 cricketers of the world, top 10 scientists of the world, top 10 mathematicians of the world. Find out about something. Well, these are activities that make you analyze information, that make you select information, that make you judge information, evaluate information, and you cannot create it on your own. A body sculpture is an activity that can be used while teaching dramas, plays, one-act plays, three-act plays, or huge dramas also sometimes. You create a body sculpture of what you have just been learning. One character talking to another and the third character also speaking. You ask 3 boys or 3 students to come in front of the class and ask them to take positions and postures. You see, one of them starts raising one hand and lowering down the other with legs apart, and he becomes statue. We use the word statue. All the 3 of them become 3 statues, and then we tell the children, what are they saying to each other? Which scene is this? You can look at their body sculpture. You can from that guess what we have been teaching in the drama. Give them half sentences and ask them to complete it. But these sentences should not be for completion of a sentence. These sentences should be basically concepts. Ask them to solve problems. This is mathematics. In mathematics, the only way of helping children to become very good at mathematics is doing one question yourself and the remaining whole exercise to be done on the blackboard. Draw 6 columns on the blackboard, ask children from 6 rows to come to the front and give them each one a different question, each one of them solving 6 different questions and others also solving the same questions in their notebooks. The larger the number of questions solved in your presence, being corrected, mistakes omitted, correction made, and naturally that kind of solution will be important. This is a wonderful game for a little senior group. You create groups of students, they sit together and are given a set of questions to discuss. So one group has a set of questions, another has a different set of questions. At a given signal, the participants get up and move to new tables. And they keep on discussing the same question, but now the people are different. You see, I move to table from A to table Z and from X to table Y. People have changed. The same question is being discussed, the same topic is being discussed, but the persons sitting by my side are different. So everybody is changing now. One person in each group is given the title of the host. As I am the host or Krishnan is the host in this group, he keeps on sitting, he doesn't change his position. So every table has a host and rest all other people have to keep on changing their position. He greets the group, he makes sure, the host makes sure that they focus on the discussion of the question. Now the children are doing the activity and the learning. Sometimes the children are asked to make notes, but the notes have to be colorful. Highlight them, use colored pencils or use colors to highlight them. You ask the children to sometimes play board games. It teaches mathematics very nicely. The snake and ladders, the tambola, the bingo, the card game, using the dice. Using the dice, you can make the children play these games and teach them about addition, subtraction, division, so on. Sometimes the activities can be interactive. You can make them play games on a computer in your lab. You can use interactive software which asks them and you act with it. Children are nowadays found, they are playing these games on their mobile phones. And this information can be then supplemented and supported by worksheets. Students' presentations. What is coming to my mind is when I visited one of the most powerful and famous schools in Delhi, known as Sanskriti. It was a 2-day visit and I was required to do an inspection of the school on behalf of CBSE and Quality Council. Well, they received me wonderful. They were so happy that there was somebody who would help us, who would support us, because most of them had heard about me in Delhi. So as I went, I started moving around the school leisurely. And I told all the teachers who wanted or the headmistress who wanted to, I said, please sit at your own places, leave me free. Let me go where I like. I saw a class where I didn't find the teacher. A group of about 24, 25 children. And I saw a young student, class 11, making a presentation on what we call as the roof of the world, Pames. It's a place in Tibet. He was making a presentation and telling about the location of Tibet, talking about, I quietly walked into the class and sat down. Believe me, I didn't know when 35 minutes or 40 minutes were over. His presentation, the pictures that he used, the real pictures of Pameris and Tibet and the places he was talking of, and the way he explained it till he came to Dalai Lama moving out of Tibet and we giving him the recluse and the seclusion here and protecting him. It was so wonderful that everybody cheered and I also. And suddenly a girl from behind me, a little elder to him, by another 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, she jumped up. She said, I am sorry, sir. I am the teacher in the class. I didn't say anything, sir. I said, you don't need to say, my dear. I am proud of you. I put my hand on her head and I said, I bless you. I wish we had more teachers like you who sit quietly in the class while students who have been told how to make a presentation. And I hugged that child and the other children felt jealous. They said, sir, will you come tomorrow? We will do something better than he did today. It was wonderful. I had to go the next day and listen to 2 more presentations. I told them I'll listen to 2, but they will be for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Ask the children and encourage them on whatever you have learned, my child, make a presentation. You will be delighted to know that I was called as a chief guest on a 15th August function when the whole school was on. In Delhi, they don't keep schools on 15th August, but this school was on the borders of Delhi. So it had nothing to do with the, speech of the Prime Minister from the Red Fort area. So I was called by my friend. He was the principal of the school and an international school. I went there, and while we were waiting, he said, "Sir, let's go now." We did the flag hosting, and then a child of class 4th made a presentation on our independence. He made a presentation in the auditorium on our Independence Day. Importance of the flag, how we got the independence, the bringing down of the Union Jack, the raising of the flag on the midnight of 1947. It was shown as a picture to us. Then the trust was destiny was read. And this was a child of class 4th. And the style of his presentation, the way he spoke was so brilliant. I had nothing else to do but to carry him in my lap for a little while across the stage and then bless him. That's all. I wish I had known that he was going to make a presentation. I would have brought a special gift for him. I request the principal. He said, "We'll give him a medal, don't worry." I would have done it just now, but that will look, it's made up. I'll call tomorrow the medal maker, make a special medal for his presentation given by so-and-so, and then I'll make an announcement and give it to him. So this can be also a wonderful exercise done. That brings us to the end of our presentation, and you will give me 5 minutes more also. I need them, please, because I have to show you another video which is on activity-based teaching now, and there I will end it up, but first I'll show you that video. This was competency-based learning. This is activity. Whatever I have taught you, whatever I have discussed with you, this tells all that. I'll switch